And this week, our show is sponsored by Undercover Comics and Cards, the newest show in Columbia, South Carolina, located at 6420 Garner's Ferry Road, Suite E. Just opened this past Halloween. And you can also find them on Whatnot. As you can see, you've got their Q code there. You can also reach them at 839-329-8062 and email them at undercovercomicsllc@gmail.com. Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth, Raven and Bright Raven. I'm your host, Louis Bright Raven. It's Thursday. It means review night. And joining me this week is John Norris.
Hello, folks.
It's been kind of a crazy week. Chris informed me, our other co-host, that he needed to take a sabbatical. Didn't really surprise either of us, but the timing was a little bit weird. So we kind of got in a time crunch this week, but we managed. So are you ready for some reviews, John?
As ready as I'll ever be.
All right, then. Let's get started with one of our two throwback reviews of the week. The Chaos Gate, an adventurer's graphic novel from Malibu Graphics, published in 1990 for $7.90 cover price. Writer Scott Mankey, artist that's supposed to be Kent Burrows, I believe. Let me check real quick. Yes, it was supposed to be Burrows. I must have mistyped it with the letter there being next to each other. So Kent Burrows and Peter Hsu, lettering by Ron Kasman, editors Dan Danko and Mickey Villa. Genre is fantasy. This was released as a collection in January of 1990. Black and white, 96 pages. What it's about: a band of 8 adventurers engaged in a MacGuffin quest in a dangerous, monster-controlled city, unaware that the person who has sent them on this task has their own evil agenda for the item. What did I think? I've always seen advertisements for this series when it was originally coming out from Arcell Publications in the mid-1980s, but I never happened to come across it in any comic shops back in the day. So when this popped up, when I went to visit this week's sponsor, Undercover Comics, at their store, I figured, why not? It was a good price. It was well under the cover price, so I wasn't going to complain. The cover is nicely painted. I really do like the cover. The interior art by Burrows and Sue is absolutely gorgeous. Black and white, grade-scaled artwork with traditional techniques of pencil grade shading against bold, contrasted inks on some pages, while other pages have more technical grade tools like duo shading, and some of the blending at times looks like early digital shading and composition used on the films of acetate over original line art, as this stuff was done just before the digital age of comics exploded in the late 80s, early 90s. The story by Banky, however, is very much like reading a loose plot of a really rough D&D gaming module. There's not a whole lot of great characterization. There's very little story other than mindless fighting. The large party size of 8 characters, though not unusual for a D&D game, unfortunately does keep the reader from knowing much about any of the characters, which is too bad because there are obviously a couple of crucial character moments toward the end that you want to figure out what was leading into these decisions and why these things happened, other than that's what the writer wanted to do. In terms of nostalgia or looking at the gorgeous art, I think the book was well worth what I paid. Again, less than the cover price. But if I had gotten this book back when it originally come out, I think I would have been rather disappointed due to the lack of a real plot and subpar character work. I will give the book 3 stars simply because the art is that good. Let's take a quick look at some of that illustrative work.
Oh, yeah.
We'll actually get that last panel there. You guys can see. It's not all just faces. Here's a giant battle scene.
Nice.
Yeah, and this is kind of why I wanted it, because back in the 86, 87, 88, when this was originally coming out, of course, I was a huge D&D guy. So, this is, it's kind of weird that they got the ninja girl in there, but, whatever, They do a lot of interesting stuff. So, I'm going to look for some more graphic novels, because there's another 2 or 3 collected editions on this.
Cool.
But, pardon me, overall, just a really buy it for the art type thing for me. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which is Blink and You'll Miss It number 3 for $4.99 from Boom Studios. Writers are Ethan S. Parker and Griffin Sheridan. Artist Keith Browning, color by Brad Simpson. Lettering by Pat Purcell and Rico Renzi did the logo. Editors are Sebastian Gerner, John Mojian, and Maya Bollinger. Genre is horror, science fiction type thing. Released October 29th, 2025. For those who don't recall the review for issues 1 and 2 from our September 18th episode, Melody has been moving back in time and reliving her life. Having slipped back in time to her adolescence, Melody is finally able to connect with Jesse, her lover, through revisiting their first meeting. Together, the pair race to uncover the horrible truth that lies beneath their hometown of Perennial Harbor before it tears them apart once and for all. Last review, when I did them back in September, I was under the impression that number 3 was going to be the final issue, but it's actually the mid-story point. There are at least going to be 2 more issues to go. With that said, this is where the story starts to become a bit more cohesive and explanatory as to what's going on and why. I think the pacing to get here was a little long-winded, but now that the reader is getting some of the real clues, some payoff for their time and effort and money, it at least makes you want to continue on to see where it ends up. If I hadn't thought that Chris Hall was going to like this series, and he never did get around to trying it, I likely would have passed on this series. Now, I don't feel like I'm wasting my time, but I would have liked the pacing of the story to have picked up and really start moving forward now that we've got all the backstory and time jumping around to explain why the women are where they are. The style is still a bit messy, but I see improvement in terms of storytelling and design work, and some gradual levels of familiarity, comfort zone level, where the artists are more comfortable in the zone, as it were. And this results in overall improvement. I'm giving this issue a 3.5. I had given the first 2 issues 3, so it has improved some. Okay. Your turn, John.
All right. Blue Falcon and DYNOMUTT numbers 1 and 2. Although I just have to say it. Blue Falcon and Dog Wonder away for those who remember the original cartoon. So sorry. Thanks for indulging there. Publisher Dynamite Entertainment. Writer is Jimmy Palmiotti. Artists are Pascal Coelano on pencils and inks and Jorge Sutil on colors, lettering Jeff Eckelberry. The cover artist is Lucio Perillo, with variants by Amanda Connor, Joseph Michael Linster, and Francesco Mattina. Editor is Joseph Rybant. Genre, action-adventure, superhero. Release dates are September 10th and October 15th, 2025. Rating is teen. What it's about. Secure in their luxurious penthouse high above the downtown streets, wealthy inventor and art collector Radley Crown and his faithful canine companion enjoyed a charmed existence until the fateful day a vicious gang of thugs shattered his complacency. In the aftermath of the vicious attack, Crown focused his incredible technical skills to rebuild both himself and his four-legged companion into the ultimate instruments of retribution, the Blue Falcon and Dynamite Dog Wonder. Ready to take a bite out of crime, Radley Crown has declared a war on crime in Big City, and he's tearing through his hometown's underworld in the guise of his alter ego, the Blue Falcon. But there are things awaiting him in the shadows that are stranger and more deadly than any run-of-the-mill gangster or psychopath, and they set their sights squarely on the Falcon's faithful canine companion. In this all-new take on the classic Hanna-Barbera cartoon, legendary comics author Terry Palmiotti and acclaimed artist Pascal Quilano bring to life a dark tale of justice and revenge that reimagines Big City's crime-fighting duo for a new era. So, what I thought? DYNOMUTT Dog Wonder, later known as the Blue Falcon and Dynamite, was a cartoon produced by Hanna-Barbera that aired from September 1976 to October 1977 with 20 episodes total. In each episode, millionaire socialite art dealer Radley Crown and his mechanical dog Dynamite would dash to the Falcon's lair when trouble was afoot, switch their secret identities, jump into the Falcon car, and race to the scene. But Dynamite always screwed things up, resulting in some hilarious hijinks. Now they join Johnny Quest, Space Ghost, and the Herculoids as the latest Hanna-Barbera heroes to join Dynamite's ranks. Palmiotti and Quilano offer a darker take on the characters, which kind of makes sense as they were originally conceived as a parody of Batman and Robin. But while those other Hanna-Barbera properties were never played for laughs in their original cartoons, Dynamite was 100% played for laughs, which to me makes the tonal shift rather jarring. In fact, my main issue with the book thus far is that it seems like it doesn't quite know what it wants to be, so it sits somewhere between the charm of the cartoon and the grittiness of Batman. And I must say, I have never seen bad guys have such a quick change of heart upon hearing the news that someone's dog has died. That said, I do like the fact that Radley Crown / Blue Falcon is portrayed as a decent guy who does give the bad guys a fair chance. I also think that Quilano's art is rather nice, and I like that this is something of an origin story for Dynamite, which is something that the original cartoon never offered. Because Dynamite is out of commission for most of these two issues, I'm going to stick with it for a bit, just because I want to see him get some action. As for the covers, I think Perillo gives Blue Falcon an appropriate heroic look, but I love Amanda Connor's covers. I would love to see her interiors on a book like this.
What did I think? Well, outside of the Amanda Connor cover, Left, which I'm still not liking as much as I wish I could because she didn't get Dynamite's head to model in this particular image. I really just loathe everything about this book. I'm sorry. Once again, Dynamite just doesn't get it and adulterizes the concept. This comic is meant to be funny, ha-ha, laughs a million, super hijinks, not grim and greedy, beat the lead to death so that they can become super cybernetic heroes. But you all knew I was going to say that, right?
Yes.
But at least I am consistent in my convictions as to what I want in comics, especially in regards to comics based on 1960s and 1980s cartoons. These characters are meant for children. Make the damn books for children. Now, as you were saying, Amanda Connor's style would suit that very well, far better than the Quilano art. Not that Quilano was bad, mind you. It's just, I would rather see Amanda Conner draw this, even though Conner can get. It's not that Conner can't get grim and gritty. See Harley Quinn in the Pro, but I just can't get into this dark, vengeful nonsense. It was cool, and you see how I spelled cool.
Yes.
In the mid to late 80s, when you wanted the appeal of the area to that audience had just grown up on those characters, and when we were teens and turning into young adults. But 40 to 45 years after the fact, it's the wrong approach so far as I'm concerned, because you want to make these characters and who their intended audience were the new audience to make these characters last for decades to come. And they're failing at that, in my opinion. But, you know, it is what it is. John gave it a 3. I'm going to give it a 2. I'll still read it a little bit with you, because like you, I want to see what they end up doing, how they're going to actually show Dynomutt once he's back. Because, you know, before Dynamite gets quote unquote killed, all he does is woof. And in the cartoon, he talks like a normal person.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering, when they get into the cybernetic version, is it going to be able to speak like a normal person or not? And how is that going to parlay? And that, so I am interested in seeing what goes on moving forward in that regard. Let's take a look at some of this artwork. And this is the stuff I passed out while on. And it's okay. You know, he does a decent job. He has Dynamite on model with the face. Nice facial expression for the dog when it turns its head, you know, cocks its head. A lot of it is just, you know, okay. It's kind of interesting, you know.
Yeah.
That they do this. I don't know why. Why is he doing the whole? I was told I would make a great game show host one day. Was the voice actor for Blue Falcon a game show host or something? I don't remember.
I don't think so. That would have been Gary Owens, and I mean he was known for. I mean, he was known for being an announcer. I don't know if he was ever involved in any game shows.
Okay. Well, I think that's probably where that line came from. It kind of threw me off, you know, when I was, because it's like, yeah, it's nothing to do with what the character is, you know. And then here's Blue Falcon crashing in a bar of where all the criminals hang out, and he's like, "Why should we tell you a damn thing? Because he shot and killed my dog." What? He killed your dog? That's just horrible. For that man.
Yeah, and that's what I meant when I said I've never seen bad guys have such a change of heart when they found out.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It shouldn't have been a change of heart. It should have been sarcasm.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And it wasn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it was like, yeah. It was just a kind of a weird thing. I would have liked to have seen a little bit better on that, but you know, I'm not really thrilled with Palmiotti's writing on this. I hate to say, but it is what it is. Okay, our next book is Electric Cowboy #1 for $14.99. It could be actually a trade paperback graphic novel. Short book, 48 pages by Silver Sprocket. Introducing writer artist Ansel Kite. This is their first published work. Genre science fiction, released October 2025. What it's about: Alfie and Caroline are celebrating. Tomorrow they'll go down to the enormous red desert planet they're orbiting, restart the electric dynamo at the planet's core, and create a new habitable planet for humankind. Tonight they kiss over hot toddies and rest, knowing their mission is nearly complete. But when Alfie wakes up the next morning, Caroline is nowhere to be found. Alfie descends to the barren planet below and discovers a tear in a space-time continuum, allowing them to explore Caroline's memories in search of her. As they chase an elusive Caroline through time, they receive more questions than answers. Why won't she let Alfie find her? And who is this other stranger in her memories? what did I think? The reason Alfie is a them is Alfie's an android, and they're confused as to what's going on, as Caroline is someone else she cares for that Alfie didn't know about. It's a story of tragic romance and the struggle to find self-identity, and how often we lose ourselves and how we think others perceive us and make that our identity. This is Angel Kite's debut work, and there's some very interesting exploration of both of their artistic expression and seemingly a self-examination going on within how they're presenting the story. It's a bit disjointed, but that is by design. I don't know if I really got the story, though, the first time I read through it, and I just didn't have time to read through it again before the show. But it is a solid effort. I wish my cover had been the one depicted here. They changed the Robo Horse's angle on the version I have. I give it a 3.5, and I may revisit and rescore this after a reread. I don't know. But let me show the difference. You guys can see the little Robo Steve he's riding coming out of her head there on the cover there. This is the version that I got. And I like the other one better.
Yeah, I wonder why they changed it.
I don't know. It's not a second printing. It's a first printing, so I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. Now this does have mature themes. It is an adults only type comic. I don't want to get too, but there's some of the interior art. And because it has that kind of a cartoony style, some people might mistake it for kids comics. This is not a kid's comic. This is a 18 plus type comic as far as I'm concerned. Some people might say 16 and up, but I don't know. There's just a little bit too sexy sex going on in it, in my opinion. So yeah, I would give it 3.5. And maybe a 4 once I get a second read. Make sure I understand what's going on. So we are. I want to get to one of your pieces next. There we go.
All right, Thundercats numbers 13 through 20. I reviewed several at one time. Publisher Dynamite, writer is Declan Shalvey, artists are Drew Moss and Joe Mulvey on pencils and inks, Martina Pignadoli and Giovanna LaPietra and Diarbola Kelly on colors, lettering Jeff Eckelberry, cover artist Lucio Perillo again, with variants by various artists. Editor and designer is Nate Cosby. Genre action adventure superhero. Release date March 5th, 2025 to the present. Rating teen, what it's about. Beginning with the story focusing on events from Snarf's perspective, and Snarf isn't the comic relief he is in the cartoon. And with Lion-O and the Eye of Dara missing, things are bleak, and the Thundercats are at their most vulnerable, making it the perfect.
What? Something missing. Hold on a second. Let's see what's going on with that. That is weird. Okay. I see what happened. All right. Making it the perfect time for Mum-Ra's forces to strike. But they have an ally. And I don't have the graphic here. So I can't share it for John. And it's Cecilia. Is that the name of the character, John?
Oh gosh, why am I drawing a blank? I think it is.
Just give me a moment. I'll see if it's mentioned in your notes. Shouldn't have tried to eat that while you were reading. It doesn't say in your notes. Okay. Anyway, it's one of the new female characters. She has android associates that help them fend off Slide and Scale and the others. Moving on forward. And that leads them into the fight with a new group, which is the Knights of Thundera, which is led by Chitara, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And they plan a raid on the mutants, or mutants, as they rechange it, since the Marvel won't let them use the word mutants as if they have any right to say anything, right? The word mutant was there before you ever had X-Men, believe me. But anyway, there you go, John.
All right. Let's see. In the aftermath of the Knights of Thundera's ill-fated raid on the mutants, their thoroughly unimpressed prisoners sows fear throughout the cat's lair with dire warnings of retribution to come. Meanwhile, with tensions already escalating between factions within the Thundercats ranks, one newcomer crosses a line and Tigra demands satisfaction in a thunder duel. The escalating clash of wills between the Thundercats of the Cat's Lair and the Knights of Thundera finally comes to a head, and the ultimate destiny of all of the Thunderans on Third Earth hangs in the balance. And once that is resolved, another revelation of the history of the Cats is revealed as Jaga and Mum-Ra face off, and not for the first time. Witness the enduring contest between the two iron-willed adversaries down through the ages, from their earliest days to the current battle for the future of Third Earth. So, in an effort to catch up on some reading, I thought I would get up to date on the Thundercats main series and offer some general comments. So, at the end of issue 11, Mum-Ra said the phrase, you know the one, ancient spirits of evil. Yeah, that one. And then we cut to Snarf looking at the pyramid from outside. Issues 12 and 13 dealt with other events going on at the same time, with issue 13 being a Snarf-centric issue. So finally, in issue 14, we get to see Mum-Ra's ever-living form on full display. Now, Mum-Ra's transformations in ever-living form was one of my favorite aspects of the original show. So this was the moment I had been waiting for since the series began. But by separating the phrase and the reveal for 2 whole issues, Shelby and Moss really just tease the reader. And I personally think it lessens the impact that it should have had and would have had if they had kept the two together. A couple of issues focusing on specific individuals or groups, like Snarf in issue 13 and Lion-O in issue 15, I think interrupt the narrative a little bit. But overall, I think it flows nicely. Slithe and his son Scale both have nice moments. And the relationship between Mumra and Jaga is explored. And so while it's still, I think, a solid series, but I do feel that the pace could be better.
What do I think? Plot-wise, it sounded good. On execution, ancient spirits of evil, don't take 3 issues to travel. This is painful to Mumra. I may be ever living, but the readership is not. The Knights of Thundera concept with Jotaro as leader is not bad, and it makes stakes higher on a variety of levels. It makes you wonder what source material Shelby is actually holding as canon. Are they going to still parlay this into Chitara and Tiger becoming a couple, as in the 2011 cartoon, or is this taking a different direction on Thunder, considering what was going on with the Thunder Duel and other elements? I'm not really fond of this story, as it feels sluggish and dragging its butt. To be honest, half of the story could have been told in half the issues.
Mm-hmm.
But there are compelling elements and reason for people to like the story, so I'm not going to sit there and tell you it's a bad comic. I don't really care for this cover. This is supposed to be Mumra, isn't it?
Yes.
And it just doesn't look like it at all.
I know.
So it's like, why is it? But, oh well, they could do better. Dynamite could do a lot better, as far as I'm concerned. You give it
is it too much to ask for the cover to be, at least somewhat related to the actual story? That's my issue with some of these too many variant covers.
Yeah, there's that. But I mean, it's just they're just there. Anyway, you gave it a 3.5. I'll give them a 3. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to poo-poo the book. I'm just, I don't know. Because I was not really a fan of the 2011 cartoon, I see a lot of elements from the 2011 cartoon in this. So it's like, I don't know. There's certain things I can see from the 86. There's some stuff I can see from the 2011. It's like, I guess he's just making it up as it goes. I don't know. But it's what it feels like sometimes.
Yeah, it does.
So anyway, let's go ahead and move back to some of our other ones. Whoops. Doesn't want to do that. Why not? You doing? Okay. All right. Our next book is our other throwback book for the week, and that is MANGAZINE number 3 from 1986. Has a cover price of $1.50 from Antarctic Press. Remember them? Right. Written by Ben Dunn, Frank Castillo, and Scott Kuster, with art by Ben Dunn, Frank Castillo, and Tommy Pons. Lettering, who knows? A bunch of different people, I imagine. The cover by Ben Dunn and Sam De La Rosa. Editing by Ben Dunn. This is a varied anthology done in manga style, released July 1st, 1986. What is it about? Well, it features multiple stories by Ben Dunn and friends, and there is the stories Mighty Tiny, which is like those little mice guys that you see on the cover. Mark II Squad, Tiger X, which became one of Ben's first real hits, and Enemy Lines featured in this issue. Again, I got this at Undercover Comics, our sponsor for the week, and I got this as soon as I saw the cover. Never had seen a title before, but it's very groovy stuff, man. It feels like an apazine. I don't know if you guys know what apazines are, but those are Amateur Press Alliance magazines that were very popular back in the 80s and early 90s before we got into the internet. And a lot of people that were aspiring to become professionals would make their own comics and put them together as a zine and sell them, or just have them as a group collective for their own little group. In this case, this is like a high-end fanzine, apazine, really well produced. It's quite interesting to see Ben Dunn at his earliest produced works. Now I do want to hunt down all the back issues for this, and I can't give the book much more praise than that. But I want to go read the rest of the back issues. And a lot of the stuff that is in this is rough, and it does still have some rather amateurish level and quality. I think it really demonstrates the level of energy and creative spark that there was back in that era, the underground can-do era of the independents, where you were at least welcome to try to do something like this, whereas today you would be e-begging on social media to do it, basically. Ben was 22 when he was doing this, and it takes me back to when I was 22, doing the early cap CMU work and my first book as well. So there's a little bit of nostalgia for me at play here, I think, but I really liked this find, and I gave it 4 stars. Let's take a quick look at it. Here's the magazine itself with the mighty tiny cover, and there's some stuff in the back. Interesting looking characters, right?
Yeah.
And there you see mighty tiny, they're like little mice. I don't know if I'm trying to get be a little more clear on my camera. Doesn't want to, but they're in armor. These little mice. The post-apocalyptic world. And they're trying to rescue some other people. That came out a lot clearer, didn't it?
Yes, that is clear.
Weird how the other one didn't want to come out nice and clear. But the lettering's a little bit, amateurish. But that's kind of expected. A lot of that stuff in the indies was at that time. Good storytelling, layouts, good level of shading effect, use of blacks from Ben on that. So, pretty cool stuff there. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. This is the Mark II squad. And that looks a little bit more amateurish, I think, in a way. He doesn't quite have the same quality as Ben. But it's not bad looking by any means. You could actually, you look at some of the facial features and structures and stuff, you can kind of see that they're trying to play with some Neil Adams stuff and John Byrne stuff in this. Like they were looking at the stuff that those guys were doing in their fanzine era. Because there's a lot of stuff that this looks like Byrne's work from Space 1999. Like this explosion looks very much similar to a scene from Space 1990. Mm-hmm. And then they got an ad for an upcoming storyline called Mecha Men. We're going to fight Kaiju by Paul Roche. And then this is the Tiger X storyline, hide and seek from Ben. And this would later get picked up by Malibu. And again, you can just see some really good use of pen and ink, but also the duo shading for creating depth perception in his art. And then the last story, I want to get to the beginning of it. This is Enemy Lines. And it's kind of like a fantasy medieval type stuff going on. So, pretty cool magazine for about $50. And I think I paid like $3 for it at the store. So, definitely worth my time. Okay, our next one is Orphan and the Five Beasts, Bath of Blood, number 204 for $4.99 from Dark Horse Comics. Creator, James Stelgo, who does writing. Editor is Daniel Chabon. This is the editors Chuck Howlett, Leese, and Foster R. Cuppings. Genre fantasy science fiction, 18 plus rating on this one. Release date November 5th, 2025. It's about the promising lead on the whereabouts of the third beast in hand. Orphan, Mo, and her adopted clan, the Mountain Bandits, team up with the enigmatic Inspector Zhao to end the beast's reign of terror. But even as they close in, an old enemy returns to stir the pot. Mm-hmm. Well, this issue does take a turn of looking at how the beasts affect the villages and the prey they rule over, which is a reminder of the elements from the first series, because this is the second series. There's been other miniseries before this. That might make it a little bit confusing for new readers. However, I do think that Sako's art is stellar as usual. I think the slowing of the pace, the lingering on the village and presentation reminder of just what kind of power the beasts have over others and why Orphan Mo's mission is so dangerous and so important for them to complete is necessary to the overall arc of the story. And I do appreciate Stelco slowing it down to revisit some of that element for new readers. I hope it makes people want to go back and read the first miniseries and trade paperback as a result. I give it a 4 out of 5, but keep in mind, I've been reading the series from the beginning. So for me, it's pretty standard, but for a newcomer, they might get a little bit different feeling. They might feel a little bit lost as to the overall goings-on of the book. Here's some of the artwork. Let me see that closer. The detail in this stuff is just gorgeous.
It is, yes.
And, the facial expressions and ideas are funny. Mo's talking to the head of the head person of the village, and it's quite interesting, because she's like the evil person in a way too. So, whoops. There we go. and Mo and the magistrate are kind of like having a conversation while both their people are like wanting to fight, basically, and then they're both holding him off. Hey, we're talking here. We're the leaders. You follow us, type thing. And then this is the evil hand that was cut off. It's going to like be the monster that they have to hunt down again. I don't know if you can read that, but it says, "Always so dramatic, Doctor." That's a really, it's a really weird way that the like it's speaking, but it's weird, but it's a cool looking design anyway. All right, our next book is Resident Alien, the Book of Changes #3, $4.99. Publisher is Dark Horse. Writer Peter Hogan. Artist, letter cover artist Steve House. Genre media tie-in, science fiction, crime, mystery. Publication date of November 5th, 2025. Age range 16 plus. What it's about: with Harry's newly arrived relatives experiencing life on Earth and getting quickly settled in to blend in enough, things are getting hectic at the 12 Trees household. Preparations are in motion to approach the government's head of Project Icarus, but how will these news visitors assure the safety of Clover and Harry without exposing them? Now, I have to admit, I'm sadly losing interest in this franchise as we near wrapping up the story arc. Maybe because it's the TV show, which sucks as far as I'm concerned. I hate the TV show compared to the comic. But maybe I've just had my fill of the story overall. The series has been around over a decade, so and I've read probably 70, 80 issues of this stuff, probably. Or maybe it's because having a whole bunch of Harry's people roaming around just bores me. I don't know. I will say that Hogan's doing a good job of metaphorically representing what it's like when you bring a spouse's family from overseas to America to deal with things like bureaucratic red tape, culture shock, other things. And a lot of those people who come from other countries come to America, they never truly acclimate. And the same is true when Americans go and move overseas for a job, or they move overseas because they go where their spouse wants them to go. They don't fully acclimate over there either. So that sort of feels like where the plot of this story is going. You think the aliens are acclimating well to things, but maybe they aren't, and maybe that gets Harry and Asta and their kid in more trouble. But they're also juxtaposing the whole let's make the whole world aware that aliens do exist and bring Earth into the cosmic UN, directly opposing this. So I don't know where he wants to go for that, because I'm pretty sure that Earth isn't ready for that. Given what what life is like in our world today, we're not ready to be brought into the intergalactic UN, but we'll see where it goes in the last issue. I'm going to give this 3 out of 5. It's not a bad story. I'm just kind of like, the new thing is, hey, it's the comic book based on the show on the USA Network, and it was much better when it wasn't based on the comic book. Well, it's like, it's like an ad for the TV show now, more than anything else. And this is where they're actually like confronting the science, the chief of the group that's hunting Harry down. And he is explaining his origins and how he came, and how they got shot down, and then crash landed and everything. And giving the quick rundown of the history of the story in like 3 pages for those of you who haven't read the series, which I was like, okay, yeah, we need to do that, but it is what it is, And let's see here. Our next book is Vanishing Point, number 6 for $4.99 from Mad Cave Studios. Mark Russell is the writer. Artist and letterer is Ryan Alexander Tanner, with colors by Sidney Davison. The cover artist you see here is Marcus Toe. Editor Mike Marks. Genre science fiction, released November 5th, 2025. And age rating teen plus, probably like a 14, 15 plus. What it's about in this issue: a genocidal visitor comes to Earth with a mission and a secret, but what will that secret's revelation doom or save the Earth? What did I think? This isn't Mark Russell's best story. He played into some tropes that are becoming all too common in science fiction entertainment, particularly the notion that there's an inherent violent nature in humanity that only grows and more overwhelming as our technology improves. Some people are comparing this story to the new movie Begonia, but then they're not realizing that both are actually referencing the 2003 South Korean film Save the Green Planet by Jang Joon-won, which is in turn homage to varied Arthur C. Clarke stories from the 60s and early 70s. And that's part of why I'm kind of meh about this issue, because to me this is 3rd or 4th generation recycling. This would have been a great story coming out of the 1970s comic science anthologies like DC's Time Warp, but in 2025, it just feels dull. And I'm going to give it 2 stars as a result. Go ahead, John.
All right. Venom, Black, White, and Blood, number 3. Publisher, Marvel. Writers, David Dasmalchian for Stalker Syndrome, Carl Potts for Toxic Relationship, and Takashi Okazaki for Ninja Venom, with translation by Aki Nagi. Artists are Philip Tan, Damian Cosero, and Takashi Okazaki. Lettering is Clayton Cowles. Cover artists are Kevin Eastman, which you're seeing here, with variants by Nick Bradshaw and Rochelle Rosenberg and Takashi Okazaki. Editor is Mark Basso. Designer is Carlos Lau. Genre action adventure superhero. Release date October 29th, 2025. Rating parental advisory.
Or 18 plus, right?
What it's about: with great power, there must also come symbiote stories unlike any other. David Dasmalchian joins the fray, and as he and Philip Tan reveal the earliest exploits of Venom as he stalked Spider-Man through New York subways and rooftops, immune to Peter's spider sense before Amazing Spider-Man number 299. From the world of the sleeper hit, What If Peter Parker Became the Punisher, Carl Potts weaves a web with Damian Cosero to show what happens if a Peter prone to violent solutions for his enemies became Venom, and it's just as shocking as you'd imagine. Takashi Okazaki imagines a never-before-seen Venom in ancient Japan as this samurai symbiote goes up against a crimson carnage. So what I thought, I feel like this is a step up from the previous issue, and I'd given the previous issue a 3.5, mainly because I didn't care for Eric Larson's story in that issue. Now, once again, the stories feel more black, white, and red than black, white, and blood, but the red is nicely used to symbolize Eddie's hatred for Peter Parker and to identify 2 killers. So first up is Stalker Syndrome, in which, you guessed it, Eddie stalks Peter through the streets of New York, his anger increasing with every step. Dasmalchian's, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
You're pronouncing it fine.
His story is short but quite solid. Now, at first, I thought Philip Tan's artwork was a bit too sparse in some panels, But after a second reading, I realized that it was likely done that way to visually show that Eddie is so fixated on Peter that nothing else matters to him. And I think it's quite effective. In Toxic Relationship, Carl Potts harks back to his own 2018 story in What If Peter Parker Became the Punisher. Now, that story, for those who don't know, Peter was bitten by a venomous spider, and after killing Uncle Ben's murderer, chose to mete out final justice to every villain he fought. Eventually, he wanted to give it up and settle down with Gwen Stacy, who survived the fall from the bridge. He too encountered an alien symbiote as part of the Secret Wars, thus becoming Venom. So this story picks up with Peter/Venom attempting to stop a bank robbery and hostage situation and going after their leader. To me, the story is good, even if it feels a bit predictable, since this Peter learns the same lesson about the symbiote that the Earth 616 Peter does. That said, it is nice to see a happy ending for Gwen Stacy. Casero's artwork is solid and doesn't feel chaotic, even when there's a lot going on. And finally, we have Ninja Venom, which is set in ancient Japan. In this one, a ninja named Hanzo is host to the Venom symbiote. And their current mission is to take down the armored samurai, aka Carnage. It's cool to have the symbiotes as a ninja and a samurai, but where this one really shines is in Okazaki's artwork, easily the best in this issue. As for the covers, I haven't seen much of Eastman's non-TMNT work, so it's interesting to see his take on Venom. I think the Bradshaw cover is cool, but I have to give real props to Okazaki, who provides a beautiful cover.
Okay, speaking of covers, what do I think? This Bradshaw cover feels lazy. The figure is great, but the lack of a background and the all too thin spider webs that he's supposedly either floating in space or suspended by. He's not actually suspended by these webs because they wouldn't be able to hold that weight per se. If you know what they're supposed to, because they're super tensile strict and everything, but you know what I mean. It just doesn't.
Yes.
Doesn't look good. And it makes a weaker design than what Bradshaw is known for. It would have been smarter to have Venom perched against a brick wall, climate, stuck to the wall, which would have been your red background with his fingers embedded into the brick to infer his strength and destructive nature. We could have had his body a little bit more reduced, overall, and receded into the backdrop, and put a headshot of an unwitting Peter in the immediate foreground to reflect the Stalker storyline. Which, that would have been nice. But this is a nice sketch piece, but it just doesn't scream cover level work to me. In fact, I've seen Nick do many a better sketch commission. Eastman's cover was cool. It plays very heavily into the blacks and homages of his roots as an underground artist, and the whole TMNT motif as he's in the subway on the train tracks, which is often the backdrop for the turtles when they climb out of the sewers and enter into the above world. And I thought that worked very well and did parlay into the Stalker storyline. Okazaki's cover, while professional level, didn't really appeal to me in the same way it did to you, John. It just didn't have enough red accents to it. The statue could have been red clay. The tree in the bottom right corner could have been a cherry blossom tree. Something, it needed more red to me. Am I making sense here?
Yes.
Okay. It's just, to me, it's a very dull gray black that dominates the image with no counter elements. And that's on whoever colored the piece, whether that's Okazaki or someone else. The general design is solid. The figure place is good. I'm okay with that. I just need more than just the tongue for color element for this. I just think it would be more interesting if the Oni statue that he's on was in red clay, or the building and the blossom tree were red or pink or something, to give that kind of hint. It just would have grounded the central figure that much better, I think. The Des Malkian story was the only story I really cared for. I was never a fan of the Punisher Spidey concept. And while I do agree with you that Okazaki arguably did the best art, the story is kind of a really, as if Ninja Venom was the most generic thing. Isn't the most generic thing there is. It's Ninja Venom. I don't know. John gave it a 4. I'll give it a 3. And let's move on and look at the artwork here. This is the art by Philip Tan, and he's really doing a really good Mike Zeck meets Todd McFarlane style here of that era. McFarlane came on in issue 300, and Zeck was the artist leading right up into McFarlane on the book. Historically, he had just done the Kraven's Last Hunter storyline, and you can kind of see Eddie, the way Eddie's facial structures are. You can see a little bit of the Zeck style, but it has the McFarlane thinness to it, and it's not as hatchy as McFarlane was back then, but you can kind of tell, like in that second panel on the left, the close-up of his face, that's a very McFarlane-esque thin line design on the face. And you were talking about that redness where everything's red on Peter's hands and head. Everything else. It's interesting that they did that, like you say, and it does kind of show the level of obsession that the character has. The image of Eddie looking in his own reflection there, and then the giant, I guess you could say ghost, yeah, right? Or mental image of Venom over him is a little bit, that's more Phillips style than, and it has a little bit more of the anime look to it than the rest of it. So it's just an interesting combination of multiple styles going on that he was experimenting with. It looks really interesting. This is the art by Damian Calciero. It's okay. A lot more red in this, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I was not particularly fond of what was going on with some of this storyline-wise. Pulling him away from the person where he's trying to save the person on the tracks because he's so obsessed with getting vengeance. It's like, oh, it was kind of like crazy, but oh well. And then, of course, it's attacking Gwen there. And I don't know, what did she shoot him with? The taser?
A stun gun.
Yes, taser stun gun. Okay. And then they put it in a soda can. It's like, I think he could break out of a soda can. But, what is that soda can made out of? Unstable molecules. But anyway, there's the Takashi Ozaki or Okazaki storyline. I don't know if you guys remember an older comic that I reviewed several years ago, but the samurai is basically a ripoff of that cover from that comic, and I can't remember the name of the comic, and I gave it to Chris, so I can't pull it up off the top of my head, and show it. If I had it, I'd show it, but I was not really impressed with that. Again, a lot of oddness in how they design things. And okay, you know, it's interesting looking. This is nice though. The battle scene. I took away. I didn't do the one full panel that John sent me because it just wasn't. I needed to have another page to go with it, and I didn't. But he splits himself into many different versions of himself and fights the Samurai Carnage version. And as you can see, he's just whacking away at all of them. And it's like, how many of them are real? Which one's not real? Kill them all. It doesn't matter. I'll kill all of you. But it's okay. I actually liked Dallas Malkian's story the best. And Philip Tamsin.
Okay. Yep.
The next book is Yuletide, number 1 of 3, with $6.99 from Oni Press. Writer is George Northy. Artist is Rachel Argano. Colors by Michelle Madsen. Lettering by Richard Starkings. And comic press Tyler Smith. The cover is by Ito, who should have been doing the whole book, in my opinion. Editor Matt Dreyer and Jung Hoo Lee. Genre Fantasy. Released October 15th, 2025. Part of the reason we hadn't reviewed this sooner was because Chris was supposed to read it, but he never got around to it. What is it about? Have you ever wondered why our brightly colored and joyously cheerful Christmas festivities are held at the peak of winter's frigid darkness? That is no mere coincidence, and now the truth of the monsters of the Yuletide hold at bay will finally be revealed in this fantasy adventure from creators George Northy, who did EC's Shiver suspense stories, and Rachel Argana, Leonide the Vampire. Welcome to the small town of Christmas, Pennsylvania, the merriest place on earth, or so they'd like everyone else to think. When December rolls around, these folks pull out all the stops for America's biggest, brightest holiday display. But not everyone in Christmas, Pennsylvania is so enthusiastic. Teens Jake, Abe, and Wynn are more interested in the dark side of the holiday that their parents like to pretend doesn't exist. The ancient legends of mythic monsters and pagan pandemonium that are deeply tied to the festival's long-forgotten origins. So when their hobby of investigating this stuff leads them to an abandoned wing of the local Christmas museum to investigate, they'll discover an ancient relic that, when activated, will bring a furious procession of Yuletide horrors long since banished from our plane, and with it a darkness that has been waiting for centuries for a chance to overtake the world. In the tradition of the Goonies, Hocus Pocus, and Goosebumps, the countdown to Christmas starts now as Yuletide presents the first of 3 extra-sized 40-page issues, unleashing a monstrous new kind of holiday tale for readers young and old. Part of me wants to review the whole thing when I got all 3 issues, but there's no guarantee that I'm going to get them in time, so I have to do them one by one. This cover by Ito is so completely different from the interior art, it may as well not have even been there. The art inside is very much of the classic YA styles. If the cat just didn't get in my lap. Let me see if what that's at. I'm trying to find the issue. That's not it. I don't know where I put it right now. Oh well. Anyway, it's a decent introduction setup issue. I just feel like the Rachel's Arganos looks a little bit too kiddie style for what the story is. I would have liked to have seen this whole style from Ito instead. Unfortunately, I don't have any scans of Rachel's art to show, and I can't seem to figure out where I placed the book. Oh well. But we'll revisit it again when we get issue 2. That should come out soon, because it comes out maybe the week right before Thanksgiving, but we'll see. Anyway, that's all of our books for tonight. And apparently, some other stuff wasn't loaded up that I thought should be loaded up on this page. Let me see what's going on. Yes, that's okay. So what are we looking at next week? We've got The Approach graphic novel from Jeremy Hahn. We've got Gotham by Gaslight, League for Justice number 5 or 6. Comic Creator number 40, which was a Dave Stevens tribute, which we didn't get to this week. We got Megaton Man Multi-Mentions, which was the crowdfunded huge book that I got weeks ago that we haven't gotten around reading. We'll get to Mercury Mouse number 9 from Big Kahuna Comics, Wolf number 2 from Dark Horse, Space Scouts number 1 from Dark Horse, 10-Ton Titan Terrier from Paper Cuts, which I didn't get to, Critters number 14, which as you can see has that Usagi Yojimbo cover on it from Fantagraphics. 1986, this is a fanzine by Jim Rugg. We're going to talk about fanzines a little bit more and what that kind of looked like back in the day. Only that's a more modern stuff that Jim did, but it's kind of paying homage to that era. There is Strange Adventures number 1 through 4 from Vertigo, which has some Brian Boland stuff in it and some other cool things from 1999. That would be another one of our throwback issues. And what are you going to be reviewing, John, if you know?
I haven't decided yet.
Okay.
So.
Well, John will have a bunch of cool stuff as well. So.
Yes.
But so that is what's going on next week on Thursday. Tomorrow, Friday, what are we talking about? It is Friday night movie night. And from the Gunsmith universe, Gunsmith Cats universe, I should say, comes this short film based on one of their side characters, Bean Bandit. What happens when you decide to return a kidnapped girl? All hell breaks loose, and he's going to need the help of Raleigh Vincent to deal with the repercussions. That's tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join John and I as we talk about that film. And then possibly on Saturday, if I can get everything going, I'll have a live draw, but I can't guarantee that just yet. So that's all we got for you this week. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Let me see what's going on with this stupid thing. It's not doing what it's supposed to do, of course. There we go. If you want to contact me on social media, I'm at Facebook at Lewis.BrightRaven, at Twitter X at LewisBrightRaven2. You can see more of my artwork, deviantart.com/BrightRaven. You've been watching Quoth Raven, Lewis BrightRaven exclusively on YouTube. If you want to email me, it's quothravenlbr72@gmail.com. If I don't reach there, try LewisBrightRaven@yahoo.com. If you want to reach John, it's grayfigaro@hotmail.com. That's all we got for you. So see you next time. Quoth the Raven. Nevermore.